All right, this is James Pelton, and I'm here with Vu from Goldmint, which we're going to be talking about. It's a project that I'm pretty excited about. And it's kind of surprised me, but I believe looking at it, I might have like 3 or 4x my initial investment in Goldmint. So sometimes people ask, why didn't you do a video sooner? But it just did not work out until now. So excited to talk through Goldmint Finance. For audience, thank you guys for joining us here today. I always appreciate you guys, whether you're watching live or you're watching the replay. I'm recording this from, actually not recording, it's live, but from Sacramento, California. So we're on a 5-week road trip through the Western United States. And what I need from you guys, as always, is please comment where you're watching from. Introduce yourself a little bit. I like to just kind of see who's watching, and hit the like button. Again, the like button is the magic tool that makes YouTube show this to more people. So excited for a lot of people to get their eyes on this project. I think it's really interesting. I always love projects. Well, I don't want to spoil too much, but I always love projects that are connecting real life with crypto life a little bit. So excited for this. And as we're going on, we got Brian from Maine. We've got Australia. I always love just being able to connect from people all over the world. So very, very cool. All right, Vu, welcome to the channel today. I know we're waiting on your co-founder, but while we're waiting, would you mind go ahead and just start out by introducing yourself and give a little bit of your background?
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me, James. We're really excited to get to do this today. My name's Vu, and I am the founder of Goldmint Finance. A little bit about myself and how I got to be here. I guess I got into this will make a lot of sense. So I first noticed Bitcoin the day it passed the price of an ounce of gold. It was probably about 5 years ago. It was around $1,300 for both of them at the time. So either one would have been a great investment, on that day. And at that point, I said, wow, maybe there really is something to this. And I got really interested in some of the early stuff that was being done with DAOs and looking into, DeFi and participating in different ways. But I never launched my own protocol. So this is the first time that I've got to run one, but that's kind of about how long I've been in the space and kind of how it caught my attention. I've been doing some different things over the years, had some opportunities to work with people from getting their protocols set up. I worked with people that were doing things like on the legal end and trying to figure out how to get DAOs to be able to operate, within the normal structures. And I kind of also like that ability to merge crypto with the real world, almost get to a point where we don't have to say that anymore, where, crypto becomes part of everyday life. So that's just a little bit about me and what I'm excited about.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I look forward to that day because in the crypto world, I'm well known, but in the real world, not as much. So it'd be nice to, if they became one and the same. That'd be probably good for my my channel, I assume. So what I'd kind of like to do is maybe could you start by explaining a little bit about what PAXG is, the PAXG token. I think that was kind of the first thing. I wasn't familiar with that when I first met you, but I think that's an important thing to understand as we kind of talk through the project here.
100%. So we are huge fans of PAXG. It's Paxos Gold Token. And when we get into, thanks for pulling that up. When we get into, a little bit of the details about our protocol, we'll talk about why we need, a token that's as amazing as Paxos Gold to work in our ecosystem. So PAXG is a 1-to-1 backed gold token. And you can see there, it says backed by physical gold. So these guys actually have physical gold in a vault in London that is cataloged with serial numbers that are associated with each token. So every PAXG token on the market has 1 ounce of physical gold behind it, which is what we consider to be just the very best form of collateral. Both my co-founder and I are kind of big gold bugs, and we just think what PAXG is doing, and by making that available on the blockchain, and I think that's probably why a lot of people might be interested today or might have caught their attention, is not everyone realizes that there is something like PAX G available. We're in a time in the market where people are starting to call into question not just popular tokens, but even stable tokens. If things that they formerly thought were stable are actually secure. So PAX G is one-to-one backed by gold in a vault in London. It will always hold the price of 1 ounce of gold, and we think it is just a really unique and interesting thing on the blockchain. And our DAO and our protocol has found some really cool ways to incorporate and work with PAX G token in our ecosystem.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, so that was pretty cool when I learned about PAX G also. So again, that's super unique. That's super cool. So that's like the first half of your project, is that there's this PAX G gold token. Then could you talk through what about tomb forks? Okay, so we've talked a lot on my channel about tomb forks, but maybe if you imagined that people have never experienced a tomb fork before, could you give maybe just kind of a brief summary of what that is?
Yep, and I'm sure some people are kind of starting to see where this goes. But Tomb is a protocol on the Phantom network that was one of the first protocols to come up with a concept of having a mirrored asset, or their token was set up to always be worth the price of one Phantom. And the way they do that is not in the same way that PAX G maintains its value of gold by having one-to-one in a vault, but they use something called algorithmically stabilized ecosystem. And what that means is the ecosystem will use a series of 3 tokens, and you can actually see our 3 tokens here: a main token, the base token, a share kind of reward token, and a bond token. And I'll get a little bit more into the specifics. But in a tomb fork or an algorithmic stable coin, what you do is you release more tokens when there's high demand. You control your own supply and demand curve, and allow them to enter the market when they're trading at a favorable price point, whatever price point you've selected. Like I said, Tomb picked Phantom, and there's probably hundreds of active tomb forks that have different price points that they pick to try to achieve. I believe all of the other ones that exist on the blockchain right now are just trying to achieve the price point of another layer 1, or some of them will peg the US dollar back tokens. But that's kind of how a tomb fork works, is it uses an ecosystem of 3 tokens that are issued either when above peg, or when it's trading below its value, it'll release these bond tokens that you can see here on the far right. And that allows the system to contract its supply. So it uses increased and reduced supply as necessary to get as close as possible to its desired price point. So you can see right now here, looking at our own ecosystem, that 0.9 PAX G means that right now our Goldmint token is trading at 0.9 PAX G tokens. So it seeks the price of 1.0 PAX G tokens. So at this time, there's a lot of cool stuff going on in the ecosystem, lots of rewards for our participants. But one thing that it's not doing is printing more Goldmint right now, because it doesn't want to increase the supply until it detects that the demand is there to get as close as we can to the price point that we seek. So that's kind of how these systems work.
Okay, that's very good explanation. I think that's better than my usual explanation. So yeah, I really like that. So yeah, basically this GLDM token only prints when we're above peg. And that's how these tomb forks work. And basically these tomb forks are just a way to provide extra liquidity, extra return on another asset. So in this case, pegged to PAX G. So we're basically extending PAX G and allowing a higher APR on the PAX G token. So again, there's 2 parts. If you want to invest in gold, you can do the PAX G token. And then if you want a high APY on the PAX G token, you can use Goldmint Finance. So that's very cool. Can we talk a little bit about some of these vaults? And let me try to connect to my wallet here. But what vaults are available? And then, have you been above peg? I think this is a little bit different than a lot of tomb forks we've looked at, because I don't think we've been above peg yet, if I'm not mistaken.
We've had 2, actually. We've had 2 prints, but that's out of our first 200 epochs. So we took quite a while to work our way up to this point. It's actually a great time. You were saying earlier, when's the right time to get the video out? But it took quite a while. We launched in a really tough market. If you think about what's been going on both in the general market and crypto specifically, even with other algo stables in the last month and a half, it was a really tough market. But what we found was that actually made our message resonate more by picking a strong peg like PAX-G and seeking to mirror the value of an asset like gold instead of a layer 2 blockchain that maybe was experiencing some volatility. I think we were able to really get our message out there and get ourselves up to a point where we're starting to see that increased demand that might allow us to have some more prints. And when we get over to that mint in a little bit here, you'll see why it is really nice when it prints for those who are participating.
Yeah, and so you can see, I think, I can't remember how much I put in initially, but I think I only put in like $1,000, and somehow that's grown. I mean, it's been crazy how much we've grown since I initially got in there, and it looks obviously I need to claim and do more things with this SGLDM here. Can you talk through some of these? Yeah, can you talk through some of these? What vaults are available and what some of these different tokens are?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 4 vaults right now. And early on in the ecosystem, we were focusing on the 2 vaults, the GLDM vault and the BGLDM vault. And those are single staking vaults, which are really easy and user friendly. You just take that one token if you have it, you stake it in there, and then you get some share token rewards from our ecosystems. And especially for anyone who's new to Tomb Forks, the way that the vaults work is anyone who participates in one of these farms that we have out there is able to earn share token rewards, which can later be used to stake for more Goldmint in the mint. So that's what we have is the 2 single staking vaults. And then right now, actually, we have nodes coming out, which are a great way for our Goldmint and Bond Goldmint participants to get some great APR and APY. So we are going to kind of back away from those 2 vaults and really try to boost the rewards for our LP providers. So some of your folks, I know you've done some videos on Grape and a few other protocols actually that I'm a fan of, and some that I participate in myself as well. So a lot of the people who have participated in those will be familiar with providing LP. So we're on the Ethereum network. Our LP is on Uniswap. If anyone's traded on Ethereum, they're probably familiar with that. But you can make LP with PAX-G and the Goldmint token, and then you can stake that LP token, and that's some of the most robust rewards in our ecosystem. I think the LP farms are both paying like 2.5 or 3% daily return right now, which that's just about as good as it can get on something as stable as a gold pegged ecosystem.
That's awesome. And I see Doc is here, so maybe I'll bring on Doc and have him introduce himself.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Doc, welcome. Glad that you could make it. And you're not joking. I thought Doc might have been a nickname, but apparently it's not a nickname. It is it's a real name.
You got it. Thanks for having me, James.
Yeah.
Apologies for later disrupted anything. I'm sorry.
No, you're totally good. You're totally good. So what I need, audience, if you're just joining us or watching the replay, please hit the like button for Doc. And Doc, would you mind kind of introducing yourself and giving a little bit of your background?
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. So I go by Doc on here. Obviously, I'm a practicing physician, but with regard to our discussion today, I've been in the crypto space probably since about 2017. DeFi over the last year or so more aggressively. And I've been a really big precious metals investor in my history, sort of a little bit of a gold bug, I would say. So I helped to co-found Goldmint with Vu. And I think after Vu came up with the idea, I was a big PAX-G guy before this. So I think I helped to sort of bring PAX-G to the table. And one of my main focuses within the Goldmint ecosystem is helping run the DAO and really make sure that's in the best position to support the protocol and then provide yield to all our community members after the emission cycle ends. So super glad to be here, and I appreciate it, James.
Awesome. No, yeah, thank you for joining me. It's a very interesting project, one of the more interesting, because I love tomb forks and then I love real world assets being brought into crypto. So it's like best of both worlds, match made in heaven. Um, so let's talk through. I think we had some questions from the audience. And audience, if you do have more questions, feel free to ask those. That's why I like to do these live, is we can kind of just bring in questions as they come up. But the first question that we have here, 3 Doritos later, he is a faithful follower on these AMAs, so always appreciate him. But he talks about how many partners do you have? Do you guys have many partnerships? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're lucky to have quite a few strong partners. Great Finance, who your audience will be familiar with, and Alto Finance as well, Alto Protocol. And then we have some other ones coming up that are doing some things with NFTs. We got a couple NFT collabs coming out with El Taco Finance. We just signed with Olympus Pro to be able to do bonds issued through Olympus Pro. So we're going to actually be the first tomb fork to issue tomb style bonds in the same method with 7-day vesting that Olympus has done for base tokens for some of their ecosystem partners. So they're kind of like giving us a chance to do an experiment and see if we can use some of the aspects. I think Olympus has been one of the biggest innovators in bonds, in the ability to use bonds to support an ecosystem in this space. So we're going to try to bring some of their innovation, being on Ethereum, is a good starting point. Use some of their innovation to kind of round out our ecosystem as well.
Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that's a really cool thing that you guys are doing. Could you talk a little bit more about people might not be familiar with the bonding, how that works with Olympus. Can you talk about maybe a little bit what that is, and then how you guys are using that to, really bolster this tomb fork?
Yeah, absolutely. So how it works, if it's not something that you're familiar with, is a protocol, in this case, it's us at Goldmint, has an asset that their DAO or their treasury holds that they are willing to make available to the community in exchange for another asset that they seek. And as you guys have been listening to us for the last 15 minutes or so, obviously the asset that we seek is PaxG. So we are making some of our bond Goldmint available. It is a really popular part of our ecosystem. There's staking rewards for it in the vault. You have the ability to redeem bond Goldmint for 1.1 Goldmint when we are over peg. And then we also accept bond Goldmint deposit in our nodes. So you can deposit bond Goldmint just as if it was a Goldmint token deposited in nodes and get those same rewards. So that would mean that even in a situation where we were not at peg, you would still be able to redeem that bond Goldmint for actually more than the 1.1 per 1 bond Goldmint ratio that's normal. So that's why people are interested in acquiring the bond Goldmint. And then what we do with the Olympus Pro is it's set up over a 7-day vesting period. So people who are willing to demonstrate a little bit of patience and get those tokens distributed to them over time, we offer a discount. So they're now able to buy that bond Goldmint through, we'll actually have a separate page added to our website. The UI is almost finished as we speak. That'll have that Olympus Pro tab, and you'll be able to participate there and get discounted bond Goldmint tokens, even if they're not available in the Foundry, which is another unique thing for other protocols. If there's nothing in the Foundry, there's nothing you can do, if there's none available. So I think people are really going to respond well to the ability to get those tokens at a discount and either redeem them for a healthy reward or use them to participate further in the ecosystem. And I'm excited to see what else we can do with them too, because this is an experiment with a kind of non-liquid, the unique kind of bond token that makes up these tomb forks. But there's a lot we can do in the future. We have a 3-token ecosystem. I would be open to seeing just other ways that we could kind of keep this moving and see what else we can do with them.
It's really
Yeah.
important too, if I can add real quick, that everybody know that the bonds that we'll be selling now through the OP program, these are not bonds that have been recycled. Goldmint, we've had amazing support from our founding investors and angels, and we were able to get the down a large amount of bonds that are basically gifted or debt free. So it's really important that people know that whenever they purchase these bonds that we have through the OP program, all that funding will be going back to help support the protocol directly. And these bonds aren't being recycled at all. So big sticking point, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so this is a question, and this is another unique part of this Tune fork, but which chain is this fork on, BSC or Ethereum? Can you talk a little bit, it's on Ethereum is the answer to that question. Can you talk a little bit about, I know that's one point where when I bring up Goldmint, people say, no, I'm not interested. It's on Ethereum. We don't want to pay the fees. Can you talk about the pros and the cons as up to being on the Ethereum network and why you went that direction?
Yeah, so there's two reasons. One simple reason is that's where PaxG is located. So we are. I'm also an Ethereum maxi, but we're PaxG maxis, and PaxG is on the Ethereum network. So that was a great starting point for us. But really, when we looked at our ecosystem, it is true that the gas fees are a little bit higher on Ethereum, but we are a little bit slower moving than some of the other forks. This isn't something where you have to jump in multiple times a day, and if you don't move it, your rewards aren't going to be that valuable. We find that most of our participants are able to time it well and pay reasonable gas fees compared to the rewards that they receive from their investment in our ecosystem. So it really hasn't been too bad for our participants. But I also just love Ethereum. It is, the original, the core, layer one for smart contracts. And I have a lot of love for the layer two chains. I would not even be opposed to eventually having some of our stuff available on those chains. But I think Ethereum's a great place to start for a protocol like us, where we have a stable peg and we have a stable network, and it's a good place to build the foundation that we're building.
Yeah, and then the only difference that I've noticed being on, Ethereum instead of most of the Tune forks that I'm in, that are on BSC or Phantom or something like that, is just it only makes sense to do it with more investment. Like, it doesn't make sense to get in with $100 into one of the vaults. Like on BSC, you can hop in with $100 and you make your percentage a day. Just it being on Ethereum, you just have to put in a little bit more for it to be worth it. And actually, well, I'll talk about that in a little bit. I'd like to know kind of your thoughts on why I put in $1,000 and now it's worth so much money. And I'm not even totally sure. I haven't been following it that closely, but I'd kind of like to know why it's worth so much. Is the price of the token skyrocketed, or have the vaults just been producing so much? I'm used to Tune forks that only make me money when we're above peg, and we've not been above peg very much. Can you tell me why I've made so much money in these last few weeks?
Absolutely. I love that question. And the reason is because you've been with us for that whole time. This is an ecosystem that's good for the long-term participant. And if I remember, you actually were able to participate in our Genesis, which I don't know if how many people are familiar with Genesis pools, but when these Tune forks, a lot of them are released, they start with something called a Genesis, and we had a very difficult Genesis. When we came out, a lot of people who had got the free tokens from vesting and staking in our Genesis pools were not interested in being long-term participants. A lot of them sold their tokens right away, and we had quite a hit to the ecosystem. So when we first came out, I guess it's been just under 2 months now since we launched. I think our full ecosystem was April 20th. We came out at a very low price point, but if anyone held their tokens for that whole time, we are now trading just under our peg. So after Genesis, you may have check the price of your individual Goldmint token. I didn't see exactly how many you had, and it might have been multiplying them by $20 or $30 a piece. And we're now trading, I believe, in the $1,600 or $1,700 price range. So it's been really, really nice price appreciation from starting at just a fraction of our desired peg. And if you see our overall chart in the last 50 or 55 days since our launch, we've kind of been moving slowly and steadily in an upward direction. So actually, even though we've not been printing a bunch of tokens, it's been healthier for the ecosystem. And surprisingly, the participants have still been doing well.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. And it kind of shows the quandary we have as content providers is, so I was in the Genesis pool for Goldmint, and I think I might have tweeted it out that it was going, but I was hesitant to do a video just because sometimes when I get in so early on things and then the launch doesn't go as expected or something like that, then people are upset. So then sometimes I wait. It's like, well, let's see for a few weeks how this goes, and let's see how it goes through the bear market. But then if you can either get in early with high risk, high reward, or you can get in a little later with a little bit lower risk, but there's a little bit lower reward. And so it's the constant balancing game that we're trying to play as content.
Well, I remind people all the time, it can feel that way when we move at the speed of DeFi like you and I, and Doc do, but it is still so early for Goldmint. We set up 2 years of emissions for our share token. So people who are familiar with Tomb Forks, the protocols have typically 1 year of their share reward token emissions, and then they have to move on to a different strategy. We have a really strong plan to use our DAO, and Doc can maybe touch on that a little bit to kind of support our emissions and keep rewarding our vault participants afterwards. So we are less than 2 months into a protocol that plans on doing a lot of creative stuff for years to come. So I don't want anyone to feel like they missed out. It's still very early to participate in Goldmint finance.
Yeah, and that was actually going to be my next question was, how early do you feel like we are? Like, we're currently at 3 million TVL. Where do you feel like this can go? And where do you see it, maybe in the next 6 months or so?
Oh, absolutely. Great question. So because we are just starting to really incentivize growing our liquidity, I think the sky is the limit. There is a lot of Goldmint that is planning on participating in the nodes. There's Goldmint that's in this single staking. So once some of that Goldmint gets paired with PaxG and then put into the vaults, there's a lot of room, even without new Goldmint being printed, for the value of the ecosystem as a whole to grow. Every time someone takes their Goldmint and is willing to pair it against PaxG, that adds that much more value to the ecosystem. So I think here, even in the short term, in the next 1 to 2 months, even just printing a handful more Goldmint and not having our system get too large where all of a sudden there's 5,000 or 10,000 Goldmint tokens on the market. I don't know if anyone's checked, but when we say that we're started with a low supply, I believe there's only around a little over 1,500 Goldmint on the market. So it is only it's a very new and very, very rare token right now.
If I can add too, I think we expect some pretty significant appreciation in the share price as well as we stabilize not only around peg, but we're above there and where the mint is printing more. We think that those share tokens they have a lot of room to run and could be way more valuable. So that'll play a big part in the ecosystem as well.
Okay, very cool. And then one thing people are always kind of wondering about is a lot of times they don't want to get into things unless they are sure they're doing the right thing. So a couple questions that I have is, first off, what's the minimum amount of money that you would recommend getting into Goldmint with? With the higher Ethereum fees, like I have my opinion, but I wouldn't get in with $100 or $200 or maybe even $500. What do you guys think is kind of the minimum to get in? And then after that, can you kind of talk through what is the best strategy? Is it just hop in one of the farms, spread out between the different farms, or what would you think is the best way for people to get involved?
That's a good question. And we actually have, there's multiple ways to participate in the ecosystem. So the nice thing is we have kind of answers to that in an easy way and in a more advanced way, I guess. For anyone who's deciding how much, I always hate to give direct guidance, but you can imagine that on the Ethereum network, if you choose to use Uniswap to get some PAX-G tokens and then buy some Goldmint with those PAX-G tokens on Uniswap, you pair them and make liquidity, and then you take that token and stake it in our ecosystem for some rewards, which you claim, and deposit into another part of our ecosystem. That's 5 transactions or 6 transactions on the Ethereum network. So you can expect the cost of just doing those couple things, just getting started early on in your participation, could easily be $100 if you measure it in US value, US dollar value in gas fees. So if you're going to spend $100 just for a ticket, to be able to even operate in the system or something, you should make sure that you have an outsized, investment, to make sure that that's not getting watered down too much, where all of your money's going to gas fees instead of having a robust portion of it enter the ecosystem. So yes, with our peg price and stuff like that, it is a little bit difficult to get in if you're just in the couple $100 range.
Yeah, if I can add on to that, I've typically in my crypto investments, if it was fees were going to be more than 10% of my investment at that time, I would say it's probably not going to be worth it. I think one of the things for Goldmint is it's really designed for the long term. That Goldmint isn't designed to be a quick hit or a quick play, and it's really going to, at the end of our 2-year emission cycle, we're going to really reward our community members and particularly the shareholder members, not only with dividends, but with governance. So in my opinion, one of the best ways to participate in Goldmint is to not only have the tokens and participate in the liquidity pools, but to then really acquire those share tokens more than anything else, because those are going to be extremely valuable and useful as well. I think Vu will probably comment on this a little more, but we're also trying to figure out other creative ways for people to use our protocol tokens, and whether it's nodes, whether it's bonding, but we're always trying to give our NFTs, we're trying to give people multiple avenues to use tokens within the ecosystem.
Okay, very, very cool. Yeah, and then I wanted to, well, first off, I was just curious, do you feel like being on Ethereum has protected, protected the peg a little bit, just because it's not, it's not as easy to claim and things like that? What are your thoughts on that?
I do think so. I do think that being on Ethereum has protected us a little bit. I think people, they'll occasionally called paper hands, are less likely to jump and make a quick trade when they know they're going to spend, $15 in gas to claim and $30 in gas to swap. They're like, oh, well, maybe I don't need to sell today. So I think there is some truth to the fact that being on Ethereum with the slightly higher fees does protect the protocol in some way. I can't be 100% positive, but I suspect that's correct.
Yeah, it's almost like it forces you to think a little bit longer term, which is just it's an interesting dynamic in crypto, because we get used to in DeFi thinking so short term, but yeah, when you have these higher fees, you have to think about, well, now is this going to be worth it as a long-term play? And so it's an interesting, psychological thing that I've noticed. Just it's my first tomb fork on Ethereum that I've been a part of, and it's just an interesting dynamic. Could you talk a little bit about what you consider? Now, again, this is not financial advice, but if it was you getting involved, what would you do? Would you just buy some of the GLDM token and stick it in a vault, or buy some SGLDM, or what would kind of be your strategy for getting it?
Perfectly touch on that earlier. So if it's me just getting in and I don't know, a lot about these systems yet, I'm going to go to our website, and you can see that buy GLDM button on there. And that's going to take you to Uniswap. And that is the most popular DEX on the Ethereum network. And if you are already a holder of PAX-G, you can see just kind of populated there right away. And then Goldmint gives you the option to bring the token in. So if you already hold PAXG, you can just go ahead and swap that PAXG for some Goldmint tokens, and you'll have what you need to get into the ecosystem. If you don't have PAXG, you'll need to swap your Ethereum or your US dollar coin or whatever, your preferred token, or your holdings are, to get some PAXG to purchase those Goldmint tokens. But if you're able to go ahead and do that and get the PAXG and then use Uniswap to acquire Goldmint tokens, you can go back onto our page, and there are nodes. It is just the newest thing we released. So I would say for the news, and this is actually great timing, because yesterday the answer would have been different. It would have been the single staking pool in the vaults. But these nodes, they are for whitelisted participants only. So you do need a whitelist spot to participate in the nodes. But for those who are on our whitelist, you can go ahead and deposit that Goldmint for an outside or a pretty nice rewards over a 90-day period. So it's 0.8 Goldmint or bond Goldmint for a node. And that's a great way to participate if you want some of the highest APR, just single staking one token. Then if you go back to our vaults page, you can see the Goldmint PAXG LP. So if you feel like you can handle something a little bit more advanced, this is one of the highest paying APRs in the ecosystem. If you can handle taking your PAXG token and pairing it with an equal amount of Goldmint on Uniswap, if you've provided LP on Spooky Swap or Spirit Swap on Phantom or Trader Joe on AVAX, or done something like that, this should be pretty familiar with you. But if you feel like you're able to follow these steps, and it's pretty easy, it is V2 liquidity. If anyone does struggle with that on Uniswap, there's multiple versions, so that's a good thing to keep in mind. But yeah, if you're able to add liquidity, that's a great way to get some nice rewards out of the ecosystem here. Like I said, it's paying over 2.5% a day right now, I believe. So those would be my two recommendations. If you don't want to do too many transactions, or you find it to be, a little bit complicated making LP, maybe check out learning a little bit more about our nodes. And then if you do feel like you can handle making the LP and doing it that way, I'd go ahead and make that LP on Uniswap and go ahead and get in the vault there and enjoy that APR.
Okay, yeah. So an easy way is just these nodes, and we're all familiar with nodes. We've been through node season, and so it's basically just kind of like a locked staking is essentially what a node is you're putting in a bunch now, and then you're able to take out slowly but surely for a longer time, and it's very good for the protocol doing that. But yeah, if you're up for it and you're putting a little bit more in, and so it's worth the transaction cost of, you have to trade half of your GLDM back for PAXG, and then make sure you have an equal amount and provide the liquidity to the liquidity pool token and put in here. I've made a lot of money in this GLDM PAXG liquidity pool. And then what's the best strategy for taking profit, or what do I do? So you can see I have 3K in this SGLDM that I need to claim out here. But what's the best thing to do with that? Should I stick it back in the vault? What's the best way to take profit in a way that's still good for the ecosystem? Do you feel like we'll be above peg and it's worth, putting into the mint?
It's just getting to that time, James. And that's why I feel like this is such a great time for this video. So like I said, we started at just a fraction of peg, and over the last month and a half, have kind of been working our way up in this direction. And we had our first 2 times that we hit peg over the last week here. We're sitting at 0.9 now. So I do anticipate that this protocol is going to hit peg a little bit more frequently now. I think we're out of some of the worst of the market. We've started to get our name out there, built some new good partnerships. So it is a good time if you've been participating in the vaults, or if you're just starting to participate and you get some share Goldmint rewards. Having those Goldmint shares are the only way to get Goldmint when the ecosystem prints. So you'll see here in what we call the mint, if you prove your S Goldmint and you stake it in the mint, whenever we're over peg, you will be the person, you will be part of the group that gets the Goldmint tokens. One misconception I think about some of these tomb forks is people think you can get the tokens off of somebody, that they're held by some master or somebody that controls them, but they're literally printed as the ecosystem calculates its own need using the algorithm and delivered to the participants. So the only way share tokens come into existence is to go to the people who are participating in the vaults. And the only way Goldmint comes into existence is to reward the share token stakers here in the mint. So that's a big thing to remember is once you start participating in the ecosystem, when the ecosystem decides it's time to print new tokens, it doesn't randomly airdrop them to random wallet addresses. It drops these new tokens to the participants in the ecosystem. So that's maybe a good clarification for someone who hasn't participated in these style protocols. There was no ICO that was missed or anything like that.
Real quick, too, just to add on to what Vu said, I think there's a few general principles that we try to operate around as well. And I think most tomb forks or seniorage protocols. Number one, we ideally you're not selling large portions whenever we're under peg, right? Just because that's a little more difficult. But I think then also it's really important that whenever people take profits, and it's healthy to take profits, and we want people to take profits, that you take some of that profit and put it back into the ecosystem, right? And we have found that in our ecosystem, taking some of your profit and then taking some of that PAX-G, pairing it with some Goldmint, putting that into the LP is a really, really great way to sort of continue to increase your investments and your return while taking responsible profit at the same time and helping the ecosystem.
Okay, very cool. So when you take profit, so do you recommend selling the SGLDM token, or what's the best way to take profit? Or do you have an opinion on that? Do you do a percentage of, I guess, what do you feel is the best way to take profit?
I think there's room in both aspects of the ecosystem to take profit. I mean, really with the Goldmint token itself, when we're trading over peg, it's okay to sell, a portion of the Goldmint that you've acquired, maybe to get some more PAX-G. Remember, we love PAX-G too. We completely understand if you want to add to your PAX-G holdings. And with the share tokens, it is okay to take a small amount of your share rewards and also convert those back. That's traded against a US dollar coin, which I'm sure everyone knows is a very stable. It's unfortunate that you have to say that now, but it is a good stable coin. So there is opportunity to take profit off both the Goldmint and the share Goldmint token. The share Goldmint can be a little bit more flexible. There's no really specific right or wrong time. With the Goldmint, it is usually best for both the participant and for the ecosystem to sell when over peg, because you get, maximum PAX-G or maximum return for your Goldmint, and it allows us to spend as much time at or above peg as possible, which is good for everyone.
And then last question. I do want to get to some audience questions. Sometimes I tend to ignore them. And if you're in the audience, please do ask questions. I will get to them. And please hit the like button. And if you're watching replay, even hit the like button. Comment where you're watching from. Again, like to see all of that. What do you feel like the APR here in the mint might be? I don't know if that's if you're able to predict that, but what do you feel like the APR will probably hang out here in the mint?
Oh, I don't know why that's down right now. It might load in a second. I think it was around 7,000% APR last time I checked. So don't quote me on that. But yeah, I think it was around 7,000% APR. But I do want to remind everyone, because you do get some people who get real excited about chasing APR. So the mint only prints tokens when we are trading above peg. We are a highly ambitious protocol seeking a very high value peg, the value of 1 ounce of gold via, the PAX-G token that we choose to kind of seek the price of. So this mint will not print all the time. There is not the capability to get that full 7,000% APR, that it might indicate. You will only get tokens from here when we are trading above peg. So you want to be participated in the vaults or in the nodes. You want to have other ways to participate in the ecosystem instead of just staking in the mint. Usually the best thing to do is just to kind of take your rewards from the vaults, your share token rewards, and bring them over to the mint. But yeah, so that mint does have extremely high APR during a print. You'll get a very generous amount of tokens in a 6-hour period, but there may only be one of those 6-hour periods next week. So just to remind everybody, I don't want anyone to be confused. There's really high APR there, and the more frequently we reach peg, the more realistic it becomes. But that does not print every day, and you won't be able to get exactly the Gen High number, as they call it.
Vu,
Okay.
could you comment real quickly, Vu, on the difference between whenever the mint is in a debt phase versus a non-debt phase, so maybe people can help understand that better too?
Yes. So at the moment, whenever there is bond Goldmint tokens on the market, and right now there are bond Goldmint tokens, those are issued by burning a Goldmint token. And you can see here, we call it the foundry. So when these bond Goldmint tokens are on the market, we need to make sure the ecosystem has Goldmint to pay back those bond Goldmint holders, should they choose to redeem them for the 1.1 Goldmint when we're over peg, which is the offer. So the mint actually prints during these last two prints, and for a few to come here, maybe the next 10 or 12 after this, a little bit less rewards to the participants who are in the mint, and it prints some of them to the contract treasury to pay out to people who redeem bond Goldmint tokens. So if you have participated in either of these last two prints, you'll find that it's been really nice rewards, but they actually will go up once we've exited what's called a debt phase. You'll find that the rewards in that mint will become even more generous in the near future. I think we have about 12 more prints before we exit that phase, depending on new bond Goldmint purchased and stuff like that. That could obviously be variable.
Okay, very cool. And then last question, then I promise I will get to audience questions. Thank you, audience, for your patience. Do you have any plans? One thing I really like about Tomb Forks, since I'm in so many projects, is the auto compounders. You guys have any plans to, work with one of the, I don't even know who the Ethereum auto compounder, like if Beefy or Yield Wolf or any of those do anything with Ethereum, but any plans to have like an auto compounder where you can just put your money in there and it automatically will sell the share token or anything like that?
We love the idea, but I think you actually hit the nail on the head with the question. There is a lot less going on with auto compounding on Ethereum because of the gas fees and because of the unpredictability of the gas fees with timing and things like that. It will need to be a little bit further down the road, I think, when we can really start to, not pool together, dozens or hundreds of wallet addresses, but maybe thousands of wallet addresses. I think we'll need a pretty robust amount of participants to be able to operate an auto compounder at a point where you're not spending as much on gas as you are on rewards. So we'll want to grow to the point where we can do something like that, but we're also not ruling out eventually having Goldmint participate in some of these other chains. So if you did find that in the future Goldmint was able to move over to, AVAX or Phantom or, BSC or any of these chains, then we might be able to participate in some of those auto compounders there. So we'll see, that's long-term roadmap, not short-term, but I'm sure there's going to be some ways for us to do that. Everyone loves the auto compounders, but you'll find on the Ethereum network with the fees, it's a much less popular setup for us to find.
And actually talking with the I think it was the guys at Grape, actually the auto compounders are not super great for the protocol. In a lot of ways, because they provide just a lot of sell. I know they were talking about that. So again, that's another instance where maybe being on Ethereum and not having that has helped protect the protocol a little bit and protect just sales of that share token. Okay, let me get to audience questions because I did say I would do that. Do you have a multi-sig? 3 Doritos later on. Do you have a multi-sig set up?
Yeah, we have a multi-sig, so all our contracts are under multi-sig, or every one that's reasonable. I mean, there's some that are owned by each other, but yeah, to make any adjustments to the protocol or something, we have, I think it's a 2-3 multi-sig set
Okay.
up with the other founder and the dev.
All right, very cool. And then marketing is a central element for projects. Everyone knows its potentials. What is project strategy to attract new users and investors to invest in this project and keep them long-term, other than AMAs with James Pelton?
Well, I don't know if there's any better option. I think the answer to that then would be organic growth. You know, we have been constantly rolling out new developments and innovating since the day we've launched. And as we get the word out and as we increase confidence both in our own community and kind of the image we put out there, I think that marketing comes with it. So we definitely don't mind kind of like reaching out and seeing some other, you know, official ways to market or to do some, you know, published tweets or things like that. But so far we've been a protocol that's focused on organic growth, and I definitely like the idea of staying in that direction. It's really about the participants in an ecosystem like this. It's not about having the most participants. It's about having the best participants.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
take care of each other.
Right. A quick comment on that too. I think, you know, what probably one of the things that we're exploring more maybe so than traditional in the DeFi space and crypto space is really the outside gold market, and people are interested in gold. When you look at I think the global market cap of gold is around 11 or 12 trillion. The global market cap of silver around 1.5 trillion. So there is a lot of interest and a lot of people who like precious metals that are outside of the traditional crypto space. So I think we will start to venture from a marketing PR standpoint that way as well into the future.
Okay, cool stuff. And then Mr. Vu, this is from 3 Doritos later. Why do you not dox yourself? So people want to see your wonderful face.
Yes, that is an excellent question. I have never set up the camera. I actually thought about doing the camera for this with James, just to do it as my first time, but I had not properly set up the camera on this PC and struggled to get it done in time for our meeting. So maybe on the next one, guys.
And he did try. I can vouch for him that he was trying to get it set up. So yeah, great question. And then 3 Doritos, he has got a lot of questions. So maybe he'll be an investor here, or maybe he is already. But is your contract audited?
Yes. So we had an audit from Raiders of DeFi. If you guys are familiar with them, our auditors was Philip. I think you can see it. There's at least a link in our Discord or our link tree. But yeah, we had our contract audited right at launch, and it's a fairly simple model. When you launch a Tomb fork, it's a lot of the code has been done before. It's a tried and true model. I hate saying like standing on the shoulders of geniuses. Like I don't know exactly how to word it, but 95% of our code was already tested in the real world by other protocols, and then they were able to pretty easily comb through, you know, the adjustments that we made to have the kind of cool peg that we want to have, and to draw out the emissions and make a longer, more sustainable protocol. And we were able to get those features audited as well.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm a software developer by trade, and a lot of times people hear fork and they think, oh, that's bad. They're not very original, but you actually, I prefer forks to code that's written from the ground up, because in a fork, you know that they've already gone through the bugs that are in the original. So if you're writing code from scratch, could be all sorts of bugs down there that just haven't been found as you're going. If you start with a fork, usually that code has already been debugged for a lot of, like Tomb's code has been gone through with a fine tooth comb a lot of times. And so like you said, you're building kind of on their back where, hey, we've already worked through a lot of the bugs in the Tomb fork. Now we have just our code. So as a software developer, I look at forks as a very good thing. And that's how code's meant to be done, is you're meant to fork it and then make it better and change it a little bit. So All right, and then 3 Doritos later, I cannot find token distribution investing in your white paper. Do you want to talk about how you, the owner, make money from the protocol?
Oh, yeah. So that's a good question. There is not, like you guys would imagine, these like vested like team tokens from the beginning or some group of investors. So we'll touch on, I touched on this briefly earlier, but the way this ecosystem works and the way Goldmint and the shared Goldmint tokens work is they start at a zero supply, and then slowly grow over time. So in Genesis, we had people were able to stake PaxG, wrapped Ethereum, some different tokens, and earn some of the first Goldmint that was ever created. And then from there, by participating with that Goldmint, the first Goldmint shares were created. And then from the needs of the ecosystem being under peg, the first Goldmint bonds were created. So the way it's set up is that the team makes 5% of the emitted tokens over time. So it's as they come out. When Goldmint is printed during prints, where it prints from the boardroom, 5% of that total amount that comes into existence goes to the team. So we don't actually get to start with any like big upfront amount of Goldmint or anything like that. If Goldmint never printed again, we would never get any more Goldmint. So we kind of make ours with everyone else. As the shares are issued and as the Goldmint is issued, the team gets a small percentage of that, but there is no upfront like vested tokens.
Okay, yeah, thanks for answering that. Any other plans for partnerships? Eric wants to know specifically with Grape, with other Tomb Forks, or anything else coming up on the roadmap that you're really excited about, whether partnership or feature wise?
Yeah. So we did touch on this earlier, but we are already partnered with Grape officially. So they've been amazing friends of our protocol, that both, and giving us advice, as we got this thing started. They're a little bit more experienced. They were around a little bit longer than us. So they've been great. We're doing some things with them. We've been investing in each other, and we're looking at maybe rolling out some joint NFTs together. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but a little bit of alpha on James Pelton. We are absolutely going to be working with Grape and a few other partners here going forward. And we're looking to grow too. We're always open to find new ways to kind of build and grow with other protocols that are doing innovative, cool things.
And then any plans for future platinum or silver mint?
I think Doc answered it right there with a little thumbs up. So yeah, we don't want to get too far ahead. Excuse me, throat's a little dry. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but absolutely. So we really like the direction that Goldmint has taken. We were wondering what kind of response the community would have to this idea, and it's really been an awesome response so far. So as we see kind of the viability of this plan, and from what we've learned from this, we really do like the idea of going in some of those directions. Actually, I've seriously considered Silvermint as the better way to go to the layer twos. I believe silver, I don't know the exact price right now, maybe $26, probably wrong. But it's a much more reasonable peg token. I think it might fit well on the other networks. So yeah, we are looking at some things like that, definitely.
Okay, and then kind of as we close out here, we're hitting at sitting at about an hour. So for people who want to get involved, we kind of talked about you can buy the GLDM token, and then the easiest way would be get involved with the nodes. Can you talk about, so those need a whitelist? Is it possible to get a whitelist?
That. So we'll get you a couple whitelist spots to give out here to some of your awesome listeners. Make sure you got one for yourself too. But yeah, so the whitelist it can be one in our Discord server or through some of our partner servers, for those of you who are in our Discord, or it can also be purchased from our DAO for 0.125 PaxG. That is the easiest way to participate. I believe you can find our Discord at the end of our docs, maybe. And there might be a link down there. Yeah, I think so. So
Okay,
yeah,
and
if you're
then
not in our Discord, that's a great place to come hang out. For those of you who use Discord, I know some people like it, some people don't, but it's where a lot of our community is, and you're able to engage with some of the myself and Doc and some of the other team members and stuff. So there's a lot going on there if you're looking to kind of hang out with the group or whatever. And you can find out more about some of the promotions and giveaways that we do internally there in our Discord server. And yeah, like I said, the other way is you can purchase them from the DAO for 0.125 PAX G.
okay, and then will that ever be open to the public, or is that going to always be a whitelist thing?
We have not. We don't have the final answer to that yet. So one thing about node projects, and you guys might know this. I know a lot of your participants, are interested in nodes. Usually, when people are releasing nodes, they don't want to do a whitelist because they want more. You want as many people as possible. But we did some math early on and realized that the Goldmint token is a very rare token. And if the way that our nodes were set up was to just drive the purchase of more and more nodes, it would take no time at all before the node system ate up all of the Goldmint. So we realized that we could operate on a system that was for just a little bit of a smaller group at launch and reward some of our best and most active and most committed participants. It's some pretty generous rewards. I think it's around 1.5% a day guaranteed for 90 days. So it's a great way to participate. And if you do find that a little bit complicated, there is always room in the single staking vaults. Remember, if the nodes and the PAX G and the Discord seems a little bit too complicated for you, you can always take your Goldmint and just put it in the single stake vault. And that will occasionally have slightly lower APR than some of these more robust parts of the ecosystem. But it's a one-click process for any of your folks who just want a quick way to get in. And once they understand it a little bit more, they might move to a different part of the protocol. So do remember that for the least amount of clicks or something, you also have that Goldmint single staking option there in the vaults. And then right to your left, you can see for the more advanced users, that high APR Goldmint PAX G LP option as well.
Yeah, and for my experience, the GLDM vault has a much lower APR than the liquidity pool token. Do you expect that the GLDM, as we're above peg, that APR to go up? Because I think the LP token farm was given 2.3% daily, and the single stake was 0.4% daily, or maybe even lower than that.
Yes. So and this is why I wanted to, there we go. Some of it's populating right now. Yeah, 0.4% daily. So we just actually adjusted this. And for some of the people who've been around, or check frequently, the Goldmint and the bond Goldmint were paying slightly higher APR. Actually, for a while, they were higher than the other two. But as we released the nodes, we realized that we were putting a great APR option out there for Goldmint holders and bond Goldmint holders. So we felt like it was okay to dial back. So we actually chose to dial back the APR in that Goldmint farm and that bond Goldmint farm and, give some of those extra rewards to the LP farms beside it. Since our Goldmint and bond Goldmint participants have the node option now. So those are a little bit lower. But what you'll find with these farms is, and this is actually kind of nice, as people move to the higher APR parts of the ecosystem, there are less people in the pools. So those who are participating get a little bit more. So as some of the folks in this Goldmint pool decide to stake some in the Goldmint PAX G LP or move over to nodes, as some of the people who are there right now leave, they'll be leaving a little bit more rewards for the rest of you. So yeah, that will likely go up at some point, but maybe not quite what it used to be.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see what happens if we're above mint or above peg. regularly for a while, just to see, it's always interesting to see what happens in the protocol. So, okay, very cool. So yeah, if people want to get involved buying this GLDM token, do you recommend, like, is it an okay strategy to buy the SGLDM token directly and just stick it in the mint, or, is that a viable strategy too?
I think there's some people who are going to choose to do that. So typically in these ecosystems, you'll find that the share token is the one that actually trades at the higher value of the two. And because we're a newer protocol and we haven't been printing as frequently, our share token, I believe, is undervalued compared to the nice rewards you get by staking that share token. The rewards are pretty good. So I think that there's some room to just move straight into the share tokens and get those staked as we start printing more frequently. I'm sure if we did play this out a week or 2 weeks and we did have that success and we were printing, the share tokens would go up in value by then. So there could be some opportunity for people to kind of get in on this share tokens right as we're approaching this time of printing more regularly instead of waiting till we get there. But again, this is not financial advice. I mean, you guys know the drill. I mean, do your own research and try to make your own decisions. But there's definitely some potential value to that strategy.
Okay, very cool. And then, yeah, some people wanted to know what my thoughts are on it. So I do like that. I can't remember if I put in 1K or maybe I put in 2K, but yeah, it's turned into 11 or 12K and it's making that 2.4% a day. I am in the PaxG GLDM pool, and I have, $2,000 or $3,000 worth of SGLDM sitting there. And actually the reason it's sitting there is because I haven't totally figured out what I want to do with it yet. If we're going to be above peg enough for me to want to put it in the mint, or if I want to sell some of it, I'm not totally sure, so I'm just sitting on it. When in doubt, with Ethereum fees, do nothing. That's kind of what I do. Yeah. When in doubt, wait. So that's kind of what I've been doing. We'll go ahead and hop out here. I actually have another AMA I'm doing in about 8 minutes with Crypto Sensei, if any of you know him from Kryptonaires.
Okay.
So yeah, so I appreciate, first, audience, I really appreciate you guys showing up. Please hit the like button on your way out. Again, we couldn't do AMAs unless I had an audience here ready to watch and learn. And hopefully this was educational and also gave you an idea of an investment. I don't consider this as degen as a lot of the plays that I do, but I mean, it is still degen. It's, it's a crypto tomb fork pegged to the price of gold. I mean, that is a degen strategy in general. Okay. So, but it is good. I like it. I've made a lot of money off of it so far. And then I appreciate you, team, Vu and Doc. Appreciate you guys coming on, answering questions. I think it went great and appreciate having you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, James. Thank you to the community. Great questions. Appreciate you guys listening to us today.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, James, and your community. You guys are great. We really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun chatting too. So thank you.
Yes, it was great. And also, I like this project enough. I think you'll see a dedicated video to it on my channel here in the next couple weeks. So I do like it a lot. So appreciate you guys. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Take care, everybody.